Sharya camp, about 10 kilometers from Dohuk. 18,000 Yazidi refugees are crammed in here. Among them, 100 former hostages of the Islamic State group. These two sisters have just been released. They were reunited with their brother just 2 days before our meeting. All of them want to remain anonymous, as two other brothers are still in the hands of the jihadists. The older sister had to renounce her religion under torture before being forced to marry 5 successive jihadist fighters.
I tried to kill myself several times. For me, it was a way to escape. But one thought helped me survive: the hope of seeing my family and my people.
Her last husband was killed in action, so the young woman and her sister were then given as domestic slaves to another jihadist. It was ultimately the jealousy of this last man's first wife who saved them.
She was afraid that her husband would marry me. I told her, I have money. Buy me a phone so I can free myself.
The first time she contacted me on social networks, I was insanely happy. But I could not believe it, even if she wrote her name. I asked her to send me a photo. When she sent me the picture, I couldn't help myself. I cried my eyes out.
To secure the sisters' release, their family had to pay $7,000 to a negotiator. To this man, he calls himself Abu Shuja, father of courage. He says he organizes hostage release operations thanks to his knowledge of the Syrian smugglers' networks. His 3 phones are always at his side.
Okay, go to the address I gave you at 7:30 exactly. Follow the plan I have given you. Take photos at every step and send them to me directly.
Abu Shuja says his contacts never pay the jihadists directly for the hostages' release. He claims they don't have the right to resell captives outside the fighters' circles. Families have to pay between $2,000 and $6,000 per hostage. The money then funds those who are putting their lives in danger in jihadist territory to liberate hostages. Abu Shuja recounts the fate of one of them after being caught.
They cut off his head, propped him on his knees and left him there for 3 days so that people could see him. Then they called his family to come and remove the body. Since I started working on these liberations, they killed 4 of my contacts, and a 5th was killed in an airstrike.
The negotiator claims to have already released 200 people. He's even been contacted by a handful of Western families looking for their children who had joined the jihadists.
She is French.
But, as in the case of this young French woman, it's impossible to free people against their will. Some families try to sidestep the negotiators' services. Khodeda Omar established direct contact with the kidnappers of his daughter. They sent him several videos. She was pregnant when she was abducted and gave birth to a baby girl in captivity. Her 3-year-old son already repeats the slogans of the Islamic State. The jihadists threatened to sell Khodida's grandchildren if he didn't immediately pay half the sum they demanded. He complied, but in vain. Despite having already paid $8,000, the kidnappers continue to demand the original sum of $16,000 US.
Do you think there's anything worse in this world? At this point, I'd rather be dead.
Contrary to what Abu Shuja says, Khodeda believes that these liberations are arranged by paying ransoms directly to the jihadists.
Negotiators on the Syrian side are close to Daesh. They're the ones you have to pay for people to be released. But those working on the Iraqi side don't do it for money. They do it for humanitarian reasons. There are smugglers, and there are also negotiators. It's become a real market since there is so much money involved.
In order to help the relatives of those who've been abducted, last October, the Kurdish authorities created a kidnapped persons office in Dohuk. The institution reimburses families once their relatives have returned home. We meet the official in charge of the kidnappings file. He has no doubt that on the Syrian side, the negotiators pay the jihadists directly for the release of hostages.
Recently, the Islamic State organization began selling women in public. In fact, it has now become a purely commercial matter. They're trafficking humans.
But the jihadists are not the only ones profiting from hostage trafficking. This is what Judge Ayman Mustafa explains to us. He directs another institution in Dohuk, the Genocide Office. Its mission? To collect testimonies from victims of the Islamic State organization.
The smuggling of the victims from areas under the control of Daesh to free them to another areas will be a trade for some people or for some organized gang.
Some have even reported cases of corruption within the kidnapped person's office. This secretary is part of a new team. All the former employees were removed 3 months ago.